everyone, Jess here from the Scrappy Sisters. So in today's video, today's layout, I am scraplifting the amazing Jess Mackenzie. She is on Instagram. She is M-A-C-K, Girl Creates. She's also a Cocoa Vanilla design team member. I'm not scraplifting a particular layout of hers. I find that a lot of her layouts have a similar style, a similar feel to them. So I'm just kind of looking at her Instagram page in general and scraplifting just her because she's incredible and I love her. And I've never done a layout like this before. It's quite different from me. And I really wanted to try my hand at it. I didn't have a lot of ephemera left, and she doesn't necessarily use a lot of ephemera. She really just digs into colour and to the papers. And that was perfect for what I have left of the happiness collection. So that is what I am doing. So I'm having a bit of a look at the different papers that I've still got in this collection. It's really tricky to decide what to use because, let's be honest, they are all delightfully scrumptious. I really want to use that florally paper, but it's not really the right photo for it, which is totally fine. I just can't think of how I want to use it yet. So I'm tossing up between that florally paper and this kind of smushy paint paper. And I'm going to go with this paper. So if you've seen Jess Mackenzie's Instagram page, you'll notice that what she tends to do is she sort of has the focal point where the photo is center-ish on the page, and then she has something else happening over onto the side. It might be the left side, it might be down the bottom, something like that, where she sort of does a little bit of a repeat in miniature of what the main focal point is. I hope that makes sense. Seriously, go and check out her Instagram. She's just amazing. So that's kind of the feel I'm going for today. So I'm putting down this block of paper along the bottom, and that's going to be where my little second off to the side cluster goes, down along the bottom. And I'm going to trim down my photo because there's quite a bit of blank space up above my head. So I'm just chopping that off. I would have made this photo exactly square, but it wasn't really possible. I was going to lose too much of the scrumptiousness of my little boy. He very rarely falls asleep on me anymore. It's one of those catch-22s, isn't it? You try really, really hard to teach your children to sleep in their own bed and to not fall asleep on you and to, sleep themselves so that you can sleep yourself. That when they do fall asleep on you, it's like heaven and you want to stay there with them for as long as you can. So what had happened this particular day is I'd put him in bed and I was reading him his stories, and I didn't even get to the end of the first story and he had fallen asleep with me, and it was gorgeous. So the rings there, you may have seen me pull those rings out. They are Corbett Creations. They are just raw chipboard. I think that's the correct term for them, chipboard. So you could certainly keep them raw, but they look a little bit cardboardy to me. I think they are designed to be decorated in however you so desire, but you certainly could keep them that color if that suited your layout. Definitely if you're going with the earthy tones, that would be fine. For my layout though, I will be colouring them. I also have the Love Always wood veneer, and I want to use that word sweet for two reasons. One, because that's very much in Jess's style, and another reason because it's cool and I want to use it. So now I'm just having a play with the layers. So Jess tends to have all different random sizes of coloured paper that came with the collection she's working with. Large and small rectangles that she just kind of cuts up and layers on top of each other, and you can just see these gorgeous splashes of colour coming in and through all the different layers that she uses. So that's what I'm kind of trying to roll with here as well, and just I'm mostly using the happiness collection, but I do have a few little scrap pieces that I'm pulling out of other collections as well, like that dark midnight blue is, I'm fairly certain, from the Midnight collection, and so is the Scripty font, I'm fairly sure. Could be wrong. Still Cocoa Vanilla Studios though. So pretty much everything on the page so far is still from Cocoa Vanilla Studios, except for the Corbett Creation circles. Now, totally up to you how particular you are. I'm just hand cutting this at the moment, but I shouldn't have because I then double handle it because I am particular. Those of you that watch my channel will know that I am particular. So then after I've hand cut all these, I will then go and get the guillotine and cut them perfectly square because I like to have my lines straight. So my tip for you is don't bother hand cutting them. Just get your guillotine in the first place so you don't have to do it twice. So I'm just having a play with the different layers that I want to do there. It's not quite looking colourful enough for me yet, so I'm still having a bit of a look. Jess also puts mixed media onto her pages, so I will be doing that as well. I'm just having a bit of a fiddle with my layers first. I think in my brain at this moment as well, I'm sort of thinking through how I want this mixed media to look, and I'm also thinking about how I'm going to colour this chipboard because I don't own gesso to... I'm worried about the paint. Sorry, I'm sort of saying two things at once here. I don't own gesso, so I don't know what to layer on as the first layer onto the chipboard because I want the colour paint that I use to be really bright, to be really striking. I also don't have a huge amount of time, so I don't want to do 6 layers of that coloured paint to get the bright, striking colour. So I'm just trying to think as I go how I'm going to roll with this. So I'm liking the colouring that's happening now. It's getting a bit brighter and a bit more Happiness Collection-esque and a bit more Jess-esque. And I really don't have much ephemera left, so I'm just having a little look at what ephemera I do have. You can see it there off to the side. There's also the exclusive cut apart sheets that I haven't even cut apart yet. And yeah, just having a bit of a fiddle. And pretty much that's all the ephemera I've got left. So I am quite limited. That was actually, as I said earlier, one of the reasons why Jess's layout really called to me because she doesn't use a lot of ephemera. So it was pretty perfect with what I had available to me. So now I'm going to get into my mixed media. So I've just got this plum coloured mist. This is not sparkly or shiny or anything like that, but it is a beautiful plum purpley colour that I thought matched well with the colours in the Happiness Collection. I'm just watering it down with a little bit of water, and I'm basically doing the packaging technique, but ridiculous piece of packaging that I'm using. It is huge, and it's really hard to control what you do with such a ginormous piece of packaging, which is totally fine with the packaging technique to a certain extent because it's supposed to be messy. So I don't have any problem with how that looks. It was just really hard to manipulate and to do what I wanted to do with that. I really needed a quarter of the size of that piece of packaging. I also could have gone much bigger than this. I am still a little bit nervous when it comes to mixed media, but once I add all of my paper layers and stuff on top, you can't even hardly see it. So go big or go home in this particular case, and I didn't do that. So you could see there I was just using the stick to add a little bit more of a dark colour to the edges of the splodge, just to give a little bit of I don't know, effect, tone to it. And then I did some splatters as well. And so while I've got the mixed media out, I thought I'd get started on these circles. And I really want to use this bluey coloured Heidi Shine. But I know I'm mixing it up, but I think like this is silly. This is not going to take to the chipboard. It's going to absorb, which is fine, but it'll lose the colour. You won't have the striking brightness that it is in the bottle. So I'm trying to think how to do this. I know I could paint them white with acrylic paint. I know I could use maybe some texture paste might work. Probably gesso would work. But all of those things I either don't have or they're going to take too long, and I just want to keep going. So I decide I'm going to pull out my heat gun and I'm going to emboss the circles. So I get out my Versamark. and I get out my embossing powder, and that's what I decide to do. So at first I try using the Versamark, the glue pen, but it's drying too quickly, and it's just, again, the chipboard is just absorbing that glue just too fast. And I don't want to sprinkle the embossing powder in sections. That's when it gets a little bit messy and you miss bits and it just doesn't work. I really want to apply all the glue in one go. So I go back to the ink pad, which is really nice and wet, and it works really well. I should have just done that in the first place. And I still just do it round in little sections, pushing down on it. Trying to be careful because it is kind of like thick cardboard almost, these chipboards. Like if I shove my fingernail in it, you would definitely see a fingernail mark. So don't want to make it, I don't want to snap it or crease it when I'm pushing it into the Versamark. So just being careful there. I always work on top of a folded piece of paper, and also just the same one. I keep that piece of paper with my embossing things so that it's easy to pour the powder back into the jar. You do deliberately over pour your embossing powders just to make sure you're really covering the whole entire section that's being glued. And then you want to carefully pick it up. Tweezers would be good here. I didn't have them on me and I couldn't be bothered going to get them. So I just was really careful with my fingers. I know I'm going to paint this, so I'm not overly stressed about, the perfectness of the embossing, as you would be if you were just leaving it embossed. But I still want to be a little bit careful. So I'm going to jump off screen because my littlest one is asleep in his bed, which is about 3 steps away from my desk. And I was just a little bit worried that the heat gun might wake him up. And so now those have been embossed. They are dried. You can see there's quite a decent chunk that I shoved with my finger by accident, but I'm not worrying about it because I am going to cover it. And I also know that parts of that circle is going to be underneath those layers of paper. So again, it doesn't need to be perfect. So I still really want to use this Heidi Colour Swap teal because I love the colour. I love that it's sparkly. So I start painting it on, and straight away I'm like, this is silly. This is a water-based type product. It's just repelling off the embossing. Like, it is just sitting on top. It is not taking it at all. In fact, I keep going just because I'm silly, and I have a look at it. I'm like, just stop. So I try, points for trying. I get a serviette that's sitting right next to me and literally just rub that straight off because that was not taking, that was not going to work. And I get some acrylic paint. Much better idea. And so it's a very similar colour, but of course it just doesn't have the sparkle or shine that the Heidi Swap Colour Shine had. And I am going to paint both of these circles in quite a thick layer of this gorgeous coloured teal. I think it's even called teal. Paint. This is just the Kaiser Craft acrylic paint. So I just colour both of those in with that. I didn't do it super neatly. I liked the texture. I liked the roughness of it. I felt that went with the look I was going for here. And so once those are coloured, I also then get a sort of pinky colour as well that I mix in, that I paint my sweet wood veneer in as well, because I decided I didn't want that wooden colour, because if I kept the word sweet in the wooden colour, I felt like I needed to include a few more wood veneer bits on the page, and the other pieces in the collection that I had left were all a little bit too large for what I was going for right at that moment, that I could think of right at that moment. So I decided to paint it. Didn't have a nice purple that I wanted. I would have loved a purple in the same kind of purple as the plum that I used in the background. Didn't have one, so instead I pulled out this sort of corally pink colour and just decided to mix it in with the green and just roll with it. I knew it was going to make a purplish type colour, There's so many colors in the happiness collection that I knew it would be pretty much be fine. It'd be on point to one of those colors, so I was just gonna roll with it. I just slap that on. I want to make sure I get all of the little intricate bits or little holes or little details. So I'm just blop, 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 blop everywhere. I then pop that aside to dry, but I also do blast it with my heat gun as well, because, as I said before, I don't want to wait. I want to keep going. I'm on a roll with this layout and I want to play. So those have been dried. You can see them sitting there. Oh, sorry. You can see them sitting there to my right. There is my layout with the plum mist is also dry. So I'm going to start sticking everything all together. So as I said, I do go ahead and cut all of these. Oh, I'm sticking this on with wet glue. It's the Montmartre white glue, the PVA glue. It's not a tacky, sticky, quick dry, but it really doesn't take long to dry at all. It's a little bit forgiving and it does give you a little tiny bit of wiggle room, but not a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and trim all of these rectangular pieces down so that the sides and edges are all perfectly straight using my guillotine. And then I'm going to staple them together using my tiny attacher. And so the reason why I choose to staple them is because I'm lazy. And this was a really quick and easy way to hold that pile together and just click, click, and they're all done. Then they're done. They didn't each need their own like individual glue layer, and then you'd mess up the order you had them in and the way you had them looking. And this was just really quick and easy. So in that top skinny piece I didn't staple on, I'm going to use it to cover the staples just to make sure they're not going to peek through, because that's not a look I'm going for in this particular layout. I then am popping them up on foam so that it's sitting on top of the wooden chipboard piece, whatever the circle, because I wanted to make sure there was space underneath that circle so that it wasn't too lumpy and bumpy. So there you could see I used the glue again to glue that final white little tiny strip on top of the staples, and now I'm using the glue again to glue on my word sweet. Ta-da! And that is going to be part of my heading. That's not my entire heading, but it's the base of my heading there. So once that is relatively down, I love those little hearts, so they're going to go there as well. I will then start working on my top cluster, my main big cluster where the photo is going to go. I pulled that little bit off the guillotine because I couldn't cut the little tiny bits with that piece of plastic there. I didn't have any way to hold them because they were so small. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to cut down my larger pieces for that cluster there, magic. And then I'm going to staple those together with my tiny attacher and then pop those up on foam as well. So I thought I'd pop back now. Most of my pieces are arranged the way I want them, just straightening them up and just getting them 100% perfect. Then I will pick that up as a whole piece and staple through those. So they're all pretty much exactly how I want them, and then with my stapler. And I'll just make sure that the staples are in a position where when I put the photo on, the photo's covering those staples. Perfect. And I'm just using, as I said before, I'm using the foam just to make sure it's sitting up above the chipboard. So the piece of foam I've got is thicker than the chipboard, so that's holding everything up above there. I won't pop the photo up on foam this time because the whole sort of matting behind the photo, it's like one giant mat really, behind the photo is what has been popped up on chipboard, and that's enough dimension for me today. So just putting that on there like that as well. When I showed this layout to my mum, the first thing she said was, "Whoa, goodness, it's not about the photo, is it?" No, Mum, it's not today. It's about the artwork. She's funny sometimes. In fact, sometimes I think that, not that it's not about the photo, it is about the photo. It's about the story. It's about the meaning behind it. Like sometimes that is a really precious moment, what was happening in this photo, and the story behind this photo is really precious now that I've got such a big 3-year-old boy who doesn't sleep on me anymore. But the photo itself is not that great. The quality is not that good, and the image isn't that good, and that kind of thing doesn't matter. It's the message, it's the meaning, it's why you were scrapbooking it that was the important part. And I think sometimes we find that really hard. We want the perfect photo, we want the best resolution, we want the best quality, we want the crispness. And awesome if you get that. How amazing that you get that. But that doesn't have to be the only things you scrapbook. I know lots of people that do story-based pages where they scrapbook with no images at all, but they just want to remember a story. They want to remember something that was really important to them and their family. And it's a memory that they don't want to have lost, which I think is great. I haven't done that myself yet, but I think that's great. I also find, so I do weekly scrapbooking, and some days I take hundreds of photos in a week, and I have to narrow it down to like 12. I don't have to. I know some people will say that, but the way that I like my scrapbook to go is I need to narrow it down to like 12. And I choose one photo to be, or it might be a multi-photo layout, but it's one event, one moment in time to be my 12 by 12. And I know sometimes, like in this one in particular, there'll be more aesthetically pleasing photographs that I have taken from the week. And my husband will sometimes say, oh, why don't you use that one? That's a better quality photo, or that's a better photo. And yeah, it most probably is a better photo. But the story behind that photo is not as important to me that week, at that moment. And that's what I'm scrapbooking. I'm scrapbooking the memories that I want for myself to remember, but for my boys to remember too. When Jack's looking back through the album and he sees this and be like, Mum, why is this photo here? And he can see the journaling and say, because I fell asleep on you. Oh, right. So funny, Mum. What your big boys are going to say. And I just think that's so important. So, and a page like this one in particular that's quite artistic, it can be the lift, I suppose, that the poor quality photo, in inverted commas, is being propped up by such a beautiful page that's then being recorded with the story. Amazing. Sorry, I'm rambling, but I just think that's an important message. So I just put out these little alphabet stickers that are again from Kaiser Craft, and I added the words "You're my," and then there's the sweet wood veneer word "child." But I decided "You're my" looked funny because I didn't have it up on the same matting as the word sweet, and that's where I started putting the child. So I decided I'd get rid of the "You're my" and just put "my sweet child" and put it all on top of the matted cardstock that I was using for the word sweet. So once that's done, I just put on a couple of more of those gorgeous little hearts, and then I pull out the Glitter Girl flare and enamel dot pack, and I just want to pop some enamel dots around on the page as well, just in 3 little spots, using the dark purple and the pink and the blue, I think. I tried to do 3 of the same colour in each cluster, but it was a bit too much for this layout, so I ended up going with just 2 enamel dots and just mixing the colours between the pink and the blue and the purple. And I'm really happy with how that looks. So this layout is pretty much done. Have I already done my gold Heidi Shine? And did I not record that? I think I did, because it looks like it's shiny, but I didn't record that. So I must have put gold Heidi Shine on way back, because there's none on any of the pattern paper, I don't think. Oh, I don't know. But I've already done gold Heidi Shine, so that's been done. So we must be nearly finished. So let's jump on ahead to the close-ups so you can actually have a nice good look at what this layout looks like. And with better lighting, because I so apologize for the awful lighting you've been dealing with for this layout. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think it is super cute. It is so different for me and the other layouts that I've made recently, but I really love it. And if you haven't checked out Jess Mackenzie, go over to Mac Girl Creates on Instagram and give her some love and just check out her stuff. She's just incredible. Thanks everyone. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.